Hello everyone! In this video we are showing how to use the API Fortress Jenkins plugins to run API Fortress tests during your continuous deployment tasks. The first thing that we need to do is installing the API Fortress plugin. So manage Jenkins, manage plugins, and in the available list we search API Fortress, that it is. We can install that without the restart for now. There we go. Obviously, we need an API Fortress project with a bunch of tests, like in this example. Then we need an API hook that will allow Jenkins to communicate with the test contained in this project. So we go in Company Settings, API Hooks. We create a new API hook. We choose the project that we are interested in. We add a description that is always necessary to not mess things up. Jenkins integration. And there we go. We can now copy this URL. And this is where the API hook goes. Now, API Fortress plugin can run in multiple modes: single test, auto match, by tag, by project. We will kinda ignore auto match for this video because it has some implications. I invite you to read the documentation about the auto match. Single test will run one specific test we provide the ID of. By tag will run all the tests that are tagged with a specific word. And by project will run all the tasks that are contained in the project that the API hook references. So we'll go by project for now because it's easier. So we will not need to provide any ID URL tag for this mode. Next, let's have a look at the options. So blocking test means that when this is checked, and the API Fortress Jenkins plugins will wait for the results of the test, and if any failure is detected, the flow will stop. Then the advanced options. Dry run means the events will not be stored in the API Fortress dashboard. Silent means that no notification are sent via email or integrations when a failure occurs. And then we have overrides we will have a look at in a few minutes. So let's check blocking test for now and save. We can now run our build. And we have full success. Now back to our project. If we go to the dashboard, we can clearly tell that the two tests have run and both generated a success. Now if any of these tests failed, then the build would have failed as well because we checked the blocking test checkbox. Let's try to make that happen. Let's add it T2 and make it fail. This certainly doesn't exist. Save and publish. Go here and build again. We see that there has been a failure as expected. Now, if we look at the T1 test, we can tell there is a foobar tag for that test. So let's change the mode of this build step and choose by tag and provide the foobar tag for this. Save. Build now. And this is again a success because the tag the task tagged with foobar is a success. And we can determine this by looking at the dashboard. So only T1 has run for this specific execution. And if you ever want to run one specific test, this is how you retrieve the ID. And this is the test ID to provide to Jenkins. Finally, let's talk about overrides. Overrides allow you to replace the value of some variables of the test for a specific run. There are many reasons to do it. However, in Jenkins, the most common use is to run tests against an environment that differs from the one that has been configured in the test. Of course, you need to parameterize your test to leverage this capability. So let's have a look. Here we have our T1 test. The first thing you notice is it is a get to endpoint URL variable. You can obviously replace the endpoint URL completely. However, if we have a look at this, we can tell that the endpoint URL is actually a composition of the domain variable and the ID. So any of these can be replaced using one specific override, either the endpoint URL completely, the domain, or the ID. Let's give it a try. Let's replace the domain variable with staging.api.apifortress.com and save it. Build, and it is a success. However, to make sure that everything went as expected, we will go to the dashboard, we inspect the document, and we can clearly see that the staging API domain has actually been used as opposed to the default that is demo API. Now, you may have noticed that the override sections allows you 3 slots. However, in a real-world scenario, it can be less than sufficient. So to avoid having the user to replicate their contextual variables wherever they are needed, the overrides have the capability to leverage the environment's functionality within API Fortress, allowing you to have one single place to store all your settings. Let's give it a try. So in the environment section of API Fortress, we created one environment that is called staging. Staging replaces the domain variable and the ID variable. So if I activate this one and run our usual test from here, the staging API domain is used and the 456 ID has been used. If I revert this one to default, it will get to the settings that are stored within the test. Now, in the override, rather than replacing every single variable that needs to be replaced, one thing that I can do is using the special apif variable and provide the name of the environment that I want to use. Save it and run it. API Fortress now will load the environment and replace the variable autonomously. In fact, if I go back to the dashboard and look at the latest execution, I can clearly see that the effect is very similar to selecting the environment from the drop-down. This concludes our tutorial on the API Fortress Jenkins plugin, and as always, thanks for watching.